Life for All presents Daily Food series, The Word of Life, The Fellowship of Life, and The Living Stones for the Edification. Volume 1. The Time Has Come for God to Rule the Earth, by Pedro. Title of Week 2, The Word of Life and the Fellowship of Life. Friday. Christ is the wisdom and power of God. Read with prayer. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ the power of God and the wisdom of God. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 24. Any word that does not come from God cannot produce life or edify the church. If we do not preach Christ, we merely communicate biblical knowledge, a good sermon that pleases the listeners. We need to learn from the Apostle Paul. Preach Christ, the power of God, and the wisdom of God. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 24. When we read Proverbs, we realize that Christ is the very wisdom of God. Chapter 8, verse 12, and verses 22 and 23. The Father used Christ as wisdom and power. What is the difference between wisdom and power? Wisdom is for planning, for designing. Christ is God's architect. Verse 30a. According to Ephesians, God does everything according to His good pleasure. Chapter 1, verse 5. God has a desire, and it pleases Him to fulfill it. When David longed for the water of the well by the gate of Bethlehem, he showed his good pleasure and the desire from the bottom of his heart. 2 Samuel chapter 23, verse 15. In the same way, God had a longing, a desire, and Christ, as his architect, understood his feeling and planned everything so that the Father's good pleasure would be fulfilled. The power is for carrying out the Lord's will. Christ is both God's wisdom to plan and His power to carry it out. God's work is carried out by Christ, who is the Word of life, and the power of Christ is in the Word. If the Word is not fulfilled, it does not come from God. If it is effective, it is from the Lord. Christ is the power of God to carry out what was planned. The entire process that Jesus went through as a man was wisely planned. His incarnation, His human life, His crucifixion, His blood shed on the cross, His resurrection, and His ascension, everything was wisely planned. After the fall of man and the entrance of sin, Satan had apparently succeeded in ruining humanity with respect to God's eternal will. But Christ came to accomplish redemption and free man from his sins. This had also already been planned. Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, and Ephesians chapter 1, verse 7. It was this perfect and eternal redemption that brought man back to God. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 12, and Revelation chapter 5, verses 9 and 10. In this way, God's original purpose, revealed in Genesis, when He created man in His image and likeness to rule and subdue the earth, chapter 1, verse 26, will finally come to fruition. Yet, this is not by human strength or ability, but by the planning and work of Christ, who is the wisdom and power of God. Today, Christ, through the church, is powerfully executing God's will according to His good pleasure. God's good pleasure is that Christ should head up all things until the dispensation of the fullness of times. Ephesians chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. Christ is in the highest place, far above all principality and power. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to Him. Everything has been put under His feet. and to be head over all things, he has been given to the church. Verses 19 through 23. It is through the church that Christ will carry out God's plan. We are involved in the greatest enterprise in the universe.